The Oakland fog sat low over International Boulevard, turning the streetlights into sick yellow halos. Morning traffic crawled bumper to bumper, a slow metal river of tired commuters and half-awake kids headed to school. Marcus Reaper Williams rolled his Harley up to the red light at 73rd, the engine pulsing beneath him like a second heartbeat. He shifted his weight boots, planted on the oil-stained asphalt breath, steaming faintly in the cold air. The bike was familiar weight and sound, chrome and steel and noise, a thing he trusted in a city he didn't. To his right, a gray Chevy Impala coughed its way to a stop. The paint was a patchwork of primer and old accidents, the kind of car you bought cash and never registered in your own name. Marcus glanced over out of habit, eyes trained by decades of survival to clock the details. Driver, passengers, hands, plates. The driver was white, early 30s, jaw grinding on a wad of gum. He had the look Marcus knew too well, thin from chemicals, twitchy around the eyes, skin mottled with old picked scabs. His fingers drummed on the steering wheel, nails chewed down knuckles stained with oil and something darker. In the back seat, pressed against the glass, was a little girl. She couldn't have been more than 6. Brown skin, dark hair pulled into a crooked ponytail like someone had rushed it, not cared enough to straighten it. Her face was too still for a child. Big brown eyes stared out at the world like it was something happening to other people. Her breath fogged the window in frantic little clouds. Then he saw what her hands were doing. Her fingers were wrapped around a crumpled piece of notebook paper, fist, so tight the knuckles blanched white. She flattened it against the glass with both palms, smoothing it with a desperate care. The words were shaky, the letters too big, squeezed together like they were afraid of running out of space. First-grade handwriting. But they were words. Help me. I'm Emma. He took me. Call 911. For a second, the noise on the street fell away. No engines, no horns, no radio from the car behind playing a tinny R&B hook. Just the sound of Marcus's own pulse thudding in his ears. His hands tightened on the handlebars. He'd seen things in his time, fights gone wrong, bodies on cold pavement, desperation in grown men's eyes. But there was something about that scrap of paper, those 4 sentences pressed to the glass by hands still pudgy with childhood, that hit him harder than any prison brawl ever had. The girl's eyes met his. They weren't crying. That might have been easier. They were dry and wide, a little wild around the edges. She looked at him like he might be real or he might be another bad thing, and she didn't have the energy left to hope for either. Marcus held her gaze. He'd learned to look away from pain when he had to keep moving to mind his own business. That was how you stayed out long enough to enjoy the air. He didn't look away. Her left sleeve had ridden up. There, on the small curve of her forearm, was a bruise in the livid green-yellow stage fingers clearly outlined. He knew exactly what that grip felt like. He'd seen men take the world out on someone smaller because they could. In the front seat, the driver never turned around, didn't check the mirror, didn't say a word to the kid in the back. His jaw just kept working the gum like it had done something to him. Marcus's jaw tightened in response. He gave the girl the smallest possible nod, barely more than a dip of his chin, a promise contained in millimeters of movement. I see you. I believe you. I'm not walking away. Her eyes flared just a little, as if some tiny ember inside her had caught a breath of air. From the driver's seat, the man's snapped voice sharp. Quit moving around back there, he barked, still, not turning. Sit still. Emma, that had to be her name, it was right there on the page, flinched. The paper wrinkled under her palms. She stayed pressed to the glass. The light changed. Green washed over the intersection. The cars ahead lurched forward, horns already starting to complain about the delay. The Impala hesitated half a second, then jumped ahead with a rattling cough from its exhaust. Marcus snapped out of it. His hand slid into his vest almost before he knew he'd decided. The phone was a rectangle of cold glass and cheap plastic in his palm. He thumbed it awake, hit the emergency number with muscle memory. He let the Impala get a car length ahead, then rolled the throttle, keeping pace, keeping distance. Long enough to get the plate, the make, the model etched into his mind. 911. What's your emergency? The dispatcher's voice was professional, flat, a little bored around the edges. Too many calls, not enough time. There's a kid in danger, Marcus said. He kept his tone even, forcing the words out clear. 6-year-old girl, backseat of a gray Chevy Impala, early 2000s primer paint. Intersection of International and 73rd. She's holding a note against the window. It says, "Help me. I'm Emma. He took me. Call 911. He gave the partial plate what he'd caught before the car surged again. 7. AT. Something. 9. He described the bruise. The driver. The way the girl looked. Not crying, past crying. Sir, are you with the child right now? The dispatcher asked. I'm behind them, Marcus said. I'm on a motorcycle. They just turned off International, heading toward the warehouse district by 73rd. You need to get cars there now. There was a pause, the faint clack of keys in the background. He pictured someone in a room with bad fluorescent lighting typing his urgency into a form field. We're dispatching a unit to the area, the voice said. We'll need to verify. She already verified. Marcus cut in sharper than he meant to. She wrote it down and shoved it at the world. That's your verification. Sir, units are en route, the dispatcher said, a little more clipped now. Please do not attempt to intervene. For your safety and the child's, we advise you to keep your distance. The Impala shot through a yellow, sliding around a slower truck. Marcus was forced to brake as the light-turned cars filling the space between them, like the city itself was pushing him back. He watched the gray shape vanish between two rows of warehouses swallowed by fog and distance. Just get there, he said. Then he hung up. He coasted to a stop at the next intersection, the Harley shuddering under him. His hands were trembling, the old prison shakes he thought he'd buried in Pelican Bay surfacing like ghosts. He sucked in air that tasted like exhaust and wet concrete. He could hear his own heartbeat louder than the engines around him. He knew how this went usually. Brown kid from the flatlands. Crappy car. Domestic situation. Paperwork. Delays. Amber alert. Hours later, maybe. A press conference with a detective saying they were doing everything they could. He'd spent most of his life as the problem on someone's desk. The mugshot on a bulletin board. The violent line in a report. He knew where a girl like Emma ranked in a system already drowning. Traffic flowed around him, impatient, honking. A woman glanced over, saw the patch on his vest, and locked her doors. Marcus looked down at the bar of the Harley, at the worn grips, marked by his own fingers over 23 years of riding. The death's head on his chest felt heavier than usual, like a weight instead of just a symbol. He wasn't a cop. He wasn't a social worker. He wasn't a hero. He was a man who'd once sworn to brothers that the patch meant looking out for your own. And at that red light, pressed to the glass of a dying car, a little girl had decided he was her own. Marcus flipped the turn signal, the soft tick barely audible under the engine. He turned the bike away from the direction the Impala had gone. He didn't chase. One man on a Harley against a desperate tweaker with a kid in the car was a recipe for disaster. But he knew someplace in Oakland where a call meant more than a reference number on a dispatch screen. He twisted the throttle and headed for the clubhouse. The clubhouse loomed on Foothill Boulevard like a stubborn old fortress, brick walls soaked with diesel fumes and stories no one told twice. Marcus pushed through the heavy door, the stale warmth swallowing him whole. The familiar scents wrapped around him, motor oil, old leather cigarette ghosts trapped in the rafters. At the bar, Tommy Wrench Patterson was polishing a glass, half watching a muted game show. He started to grin, then froze. "You look like hell, Reaper." What happened? Marcus didn't bother answering. He set his phone, wallet, and keys on the bar in a neat row. His hand trembled once before he curled it into a fist. "I need coffee." Wrench didn't joke. He poured a mug and slid it forward. Marcus wrapped his fingers around it, grounding himself. "Talk to me," Wrench said quietly. Marcus's voice came out low. "There's a little girl in trouble. Bad trouble." That was enough to pull Big Mike out of the card room, the door swinging open behind him. Prophet Carlos followed his expression, sharpening. "What girl?" Big Mike asked. Marcus told them. The note, the bruise, the terror in her eyes, the gray Impala slipping into the fog. When he finished, the room held its breath. "You called 911, Carlos asked. "Yeah," Marcus said. "They said they'd send a unit to verify." Wrench scoffed. Verify? Like she forged her own bruise. The clubhouse filled with men coming from the shop and back rooms, drawn by the tone, not the volume. Quiet sincerity carried further in a place like this than shouting ever could. Marcus lifted the coffee. It burned, but he welcomed the sting. "I'm not letting her end up in a basement while they shuffle paperwork." He pulled the battered map of Oakland from the drawer under the pool table. Wrench grabbed the old laptop. Carlos pulled a stack of burner phones from a metal tin. Big Mike fetched the Sharpies. They formed a circle around the map. She vanished somewhere between International Boulevard and the Morrison Warehouse District, Marcus said. "That's our Zone Alpha," Morrison Carlos murmured. "Didn't that bastard used to work there?" "He did," Marcus said. "Got fired but kept the keys." It was the closest thing to a lead they were going to get. Wrench cracked open the laptop. The fan whined like a dying animal, but the camera feeds loaded. Grainy black and white boxes flickered across the screen. He scanned intersection after intersection, curse words slipping out under his breath. "Hold up," he said suddenly. "Right there." He stabbed the touchpad. A gray Impala slid into frame, fog curling around its bumper. The timestamp sat in the corner, blurry but visible, marking the moment it turned toward the Morrison block. "That's her," Marcus said. Big Mike nodded. "All right. We call everyone." He meant it. Everyone. Sacramento, San Jose, Vallejo, Richmond, the Nomads, the coastal chapters, even the old-timers who only rode on Sundays and funerals. Marcus felt his phone vibrate with an unpleasant buzz in his chest. He stepped away and called Oakland PD again. A different voice answered this time, sharper, colder. "Oakland Police. How can I assist?" "This is Marcus Williams," he said. "I reported a child abduction less than an hour ago. We located the suspect vehicle. I need a unit at the Morrison warehouse now." The pause that followed was anything but professional. "Williams," the officer said slowly, "we have your file. We are not taking directives from a Hells Angels member. Stand down and wait until officers complete verification." Marcus closed his eyes. There it was. The system refusing help because of who he used to be. Verification, he echoed, voice flat, while a child sits terrified with a man who leaves fingerprints on her arm. Sir, this is not up for discussion, Marcus hung up. He walked back to the pool table, jaw stone hard. All right, he said. They're not coming. Not fast enough. What did they say? Wrench asked. That they don't take orders from men like us. His voice was calm, almost too calm. So we stop asking. Big Mike clapped a heavy hand onto the table. Then we do it the old way. Phones lit up. Calls went out like sparks across tinder. Carlos muttered into his phone in rapid Spanish. Check the alleys by the tracks. Ask the guys at the tire shop. Anyone seen a gray Impala with primer spots, call me back right now. Wrench coordinated the grid. Alpha Team takes Morrison. Bravo sweeps the railroad frontage. Charlie checks the airport cut-throughs. Big Mike worked through his endless contact list. San Jose says they're rolling deep. Sacramento's got over 200 ready. Stockton can put boots on the ground in an hour. The clubhouse vibrated with movement now, chairs, scraping boots, hammering concrete, phones ringing. The sense of purpose thickened the air. Marcus stood at the head of the table, hands braced on the map. A little girl asked for help, he said. Nobody else saw her. We did. That makes her one of ours until she's safe in her mother's arms. No cheers, just solemn nods. Brotherhood didn't need applause. From the far end of the room the scanner crackled, but nothing on it suggested urgency. The police still hadn't moved. Fine. Marcus lifted his phone again. If the system won't save her, he said, then 2,500 brothers will. Wrench looked up from the laptop, eyes bright with something dangerous. War Room's live, he said. Just give the word. And Marcus did, because a child was waiting, and the men in that room had already decided they would burn every mile of Oakland to get to her. By the time they turned off 96, the sun had climbed just high enough to make the street feel exposed. Marcus rode Point Harley, grumbling under him, with Carlos following in an old pickup and Wrench bringing up the rear on his own bike. The neighborhood was all chain link and peeling paint, banged up sedans nose in along the curb. Somewhere nearby, a radio played low Spanish pop through an open window. A baby cried down the block. A dog barked from behind a fence that had seen better years. The address they'd been given was a tired, two-story building near the Coliseum tracks. Paint once meant to be cheerful pink had been bleached to an uneven chalk. Curtains sagged in the windows like they'd given up. Marcus killed the engine and let the quiet settle. His hands stilled on the grips. His chest felt too tight. He could still see that note every time he blinked. Carlos climbed out of the truck, tucking his phone into his pocket. "You sure about this, hermano?" he asked. "No," Marcus said, "but I'm sure she deserves better than a phone call from a stranger in a uniform saying they're doing all they can." He walked up the narrow concrete steps, boots heavy, and knocked. For a moment nothing moved inside. Then he heard the shuffle of feet, the scrape of a chain being slid aside. The door opened, a hand's-width chain still on, and a woman's face appeared in the gap. She was in her 30s maybe, but the last few days had stolen a decade. Dark hair yanked into a tired knot, eyes swollen, and red skin a shade lighter than it should have been. She wore a waitress uniform under a worn hoodie, the name badge still pinned near her heart, Rosa. She saw the leather vests, the patches, the tattoos. Fear flashed across her features, hardened into suspicion. "We're not buying anything," she said, voice, rough accent, thickened by exhaustion. "And I already talked to the detectives." Marcus kept his hands at his sides, palms open. Mrs. Martinez, he said quietly, my name is Marcus Williams. This is Carlos, that's Tommy. We're from the Hells Angels Oakland chapter. Her eyes narrowed. Then you should leave. I saw your daughter this morning, he said. At a light on International. She had a note against the window. Whatever she'd been bracing for, that wasn't it. The color drained from her face. The chain rattled as her hand slipped off it. The door swung open wider. You saw Emma, she whispered. Marcus nodded once. It felt like breaking something delicate. Yes, ma'am. She was in the back of a gray Impala with a white male driver. She pressed a note to the glass. Help me. I'm Emma. He took me. Call 911. I called it in. Rosa's knees buckled. Carlos stepped forward on instinct, catching her under the elbow, guiding her gently back inside. The apartment was small and overfull. A sagging couch pushed against one wall, a coffee table cluttered with paperwork and styrofoam cups, a little television on a crate in the corner playing some daytime show no one was actually watching. The kitchen bled straight into the living room. The smell of burned coffee and cleaning chemicals hung in the air. On the refrigerator, every inch of metal was claimed by photos. A little girl with butterfly wings, a school portrait with a crooked smile and a missing tooth, a glitter-covered drawing of a house, and 3 stick figures holding hands. Carlos eased Rosa onto the couch. Marcus and Wrench remained standing hats off, as if they were in church. You saw my Estrelita Rosa, said the pet name breaking on her tongue. Was she hurt? Marcus chose his words like he was diffusing a bomb. She had a bruise on her forearm, he said. Looked like someone grabbed her too hard. But she was conscious, aware. She was fighting however she could. Rosa pressed her fist to her mouth. Her shoulders shook, but no sound came out at first. When it did, it was a low animal keening that made Marcus's stomach twist. I called 911, he added, because he needed her to know he hadn't just ridden away. I gave them the description. The plate, everything. They told me they'd verify. He did not add what they'd said when they found out his name. Rosa let her hand drop. Her eyes were wet but focused. There was steel under the grief. They keep saying that, she said. Verify. They took my statement. They took her picture. They say they're doing what they can while my baby is out there with that man. Ray Carlos said softly. Hutchkins. The name hit the air like a curse. Rosa flinched. You know him. Only what we pulled, Wrench answered. Old rap sheet. Domestic violence. Possession. That's it. Rosa laughed, then a broken sound. That's not it, she said. That is the tip. The rest is in here. She tapped her chest, then looked up at Marcus. Why are you here? Because the system moves slow, Marcus said. And monsters move fast. I saw your daughter ask for help. My brothers and I, we are going to help. If you'll let us. Her gaze slid over the patches on their vests, the skulls and rockers, the history in ink and thread. A life ago she might have slammed the door. Now she saw something else. Fathers, grandfathers, men who understood what it meant to lose things. Sit, she said quietly. If you're going to help, you need to know him, and you need to know her. They took seats where they could, Carlos on a milk crate, Wrench on the arm of a chair, Marcus on the edge of the coffee table, hands loose between his knees. Rosa reached for a photo on the fridge without standing. She'd done it often enough to know the distance. She handed it to Marcus. Emma in a Halloween costume, wings too big for her shoulders, face-painted eyes bright. She loves butterflies, Rosa said. She says they are proof you can start ugly and still end up beautiful. She insists on wearing different socks every day because matching is boring, Mama. She hums when she draws little songs. She makes up like the crayons need music to work. Marcus studied the photo, then set it gently on the table. She looks brave, he said. She is, Rosa replied. Her father called her his little star. Mi estrellita. He died 2 years ago. Cancer. We lost the apartment, the car, almost everything. And then Ray came with his stupid smile and his steady paycheck. The bitterness in her voice was sharp enough to cut. He was kind at first, helped with Emma's homework, brought flowers sometimes. She wiped at her cheeks angrily. Then he started drinking, and when he drank he needed something to hit. She pushed her sleeve up. Yellow-green bruises bloomed on her upper arm, fading but still obvious. He hit me when she was at school, she said. He thought that made it better. I thought if I could take it, at least he wasn't touching her. I was wrong. Carlos's jaw clenched. Wrench looked away, knuckles white on his knee. I filed a restraining order, Rosa went on. 2 weeks ago. He laughed when they served him. Told me I'd regret embarrassing him. I thought he meant me. Her voice cracked. I did not think he would take her. Marcus felt something dark and familiar move in his chest. He'd been the man on the other side of that fear once. He had no illusions about it. Maybe that was why this felt so sharp. Rosa, he said, we need to know everywhere he might go. Places he knows. Places he thinks nobody else does. She nodded, thinking mind shifting from grief to problem-solving by sheer force. He worked at Morrison Auto Parts, she said. Warehouse on 73rd. Night shift. They fired him because he came in drunk too many times, but he kept the keys. I saw them on his ring when he came to the playground that day. Marcus's eyes met Carlos's. That clicked perfectly with what they had on the map. Anywhere else, he asked. His brother, she said. Dennis. Lives in Hayward. Small house near the freeway. They fight a lot, but Ray always runs there when he's in trouble. I do not know the exact address, but she rattled off a street name, a cross street. Carlos typed it into his phone. Wrench held up his camera. May I? He asked. Rosa hesitated only a second, then nodded. He moved to the fridge, snapping shots of every picture of Emma he could, making sure her face was clear. Each click felt like a promise. We're sending these to every rider we got, Marcus told her. Every brother who rolls into this city today is going to know what she looks like. Nobody is going to mistake her for anything except a girl who needs to go home. He stood then, suddenly unsure what to do with his hands. There's one more thing I need from you, he said. When we find her, it's going to move fast. Cops, paramedics, questions. She's going to need something familiar in the middle of all that. Can you pack a bag for her, favorite blanket, clothes, whatever makes her feel like herself? Rosa stared at him, then rose without a word and walked down the short hall. He heard a door creak open, the soft rustle of fabric. She came back with a small backpack, purple, with worn unicorn patches sewn carefully along the top seam. I packed this the first night she did not come home, she said. In case they found her, and told me to come get my daughter. It has her favorite pajamas. And the butterfly sweater. Marcus took the bag from her like it was something sacred. We're going to do everything we can, he said. The words felt small next to what she was carrying inside, but they were all he had. I won't lie to you. I can't promise how it ends, but I promise you this: we are not waiting for the paperwork to catch up. Rosa nodded, once tears shining again, but her jaw set. What do you need me to do? She asked. Stay by your phone, Marcus said. Answer if it rings, even if the number looks strange. And when we call, be ready to move. He turned to go, then paused in the doorway, looking back at the wall of photographs. Emma's smile, duplicated a dozen times, followed him. He thought of his own daughter for the first time in a while, grown now, living her own life. He remembered what it had felt like when she was small and the world was enormous and mean, and he had been the only line between her and everything. He had not always done right by his own kid. Maybe today he could do right by someone else's. Outside, the street felt different. The same cracked pavement, the same liquor store on the corner, the same siren wailing somewhere far off. But now the mission had a face and a laugh and a favorite sweater. He handed the backpack to Carlos, straddled his bike, and fired the engine. Let's go find her, he said. The brothers nodded, and with that they rode back toward the warehouse district, carrying a mother's last solid hope in the bed of an old pickup, and the image of a little girl in butterfly wings printed behind their eyes. Morrison Auto Parts looked even deader up close. The warehouse sat at the end of a pitted side street, a long, low hulk of corrugated metal streaked with rust. The faded sign over the loading bay still insisted it had been established in 1987, like saying it enough might make it true again. Weeds clawed through cracks in the asphalt. A chain-link fence leaned away from the lot, as if it wanted no part of what might be happening inside. Marcus rolled the Harley to a crawl and cut the engine a block short. Momentum carried him the last few feet, tires whispering over gravel. Carlos eased the pickup to a stop behind him. Wrench pulled in on the opposite curb, eyes already scanning. The street was quiet. Too quiet. Marcus swung off the bike boots, crunching, and walked toward the lot like a man approaching a wild dog. Not afraid exactly, just respectful of what could happen if he made the wrong move. The gray Impala sat near the loading bay, half tucked in the shadow of the building. Up close, it looked even more exhausted than it had at the light. Primer patches on the doors, one hubcap missing a spiderweb of cracks in one taillight. He put his hand flat on the hood. Warm, not hot but not cold either. Recent. His chest tightened. She's been here less than an hour, he said. Wrench circled the car, eyes moving over every detail. No plates on the front, rear ones hanging by a single screw. That's our girl, all right. Carlos stayed near the edge of the lot, phone in hand, watching both the building and the mouth of the street. You think he's still inside? He asked. I think he's desperate, Marcus said, and desperate men stay close to their exits. He took in the building itself. Bay door closed, but the chain locking it hung slack, no padlock. A smaller man door sat to the right, its knob dark with use. Most of the windows at ground level were boarded. The few that weren't showed only darkness and hanging dust. He could feel the decision forming in his gut. They had the car. They had the likely location. Now they needed a net. He turned back toward the street and saw it beginning. The first wave of bikes rolled into view at the far end of the block, engines low formation tight. Sacramento rockers. Their front man lifted two fingers in salute as they coasted past the pickup and lined up along the curb opposite the warehouse. A second wave came in from the cross street. San Jose cuts chrome glinting dull in the overcast light. Behind them, single bikes and small clusters bearing other city names. Vallejo, Richmond, A couple nomad rockers with no city at all, just the state. Within minutes, the block went from abandoned to alive. Engines idled a low, constant thunder like a storm waiting for permission to break. Marcus stepped back into the street, trying to see it the way a stranger would. A dead warehouse at one end, cars scattered like bones, and now a wall of leather and steel forming around it. Every zone he had drawn on the map was starting to fill in with bodies, and every zone hid the same secret engines were already warming up in cities he had not seen in years. Big Mike appeared beside him as if conjured. He must have ridden with one of the early groups. "Looks like you pulled the fire alarm," Mike said. "Fire's already burning," Marcus answered. "We're just here to make sure it doesn't burn the wrong people." He pointed, voice shifting into command. "Alpha Team holds this block. Eyes on every door, every window, every hole in that fence. Nobody in or out without us knowing. Bravo spreads along the side streets to the east. Check every alley, every back gate. Charlie covers the routes back to International and down toward the freeway. If he bolts, I want him running into a wall of patches." The men nodded and moved without argument. Some carried radios. Others relied on phones and hand signals. It was not polished, but it was practiced. Wrench jogged over, tapping the scanner clipped to his belt. "OPD's starting to hear about us," he said. "Units are reporting large gathering of motorcyclists in the industrial district." They sound thrilled. Marcus huffed, no humor in it. "Good," he said. "Time to talk to someone who gets paid to care." He pulled out his phone and scrolled to a number he had not expected to ever need: the detective, whose card he'd been given the first time he tried to do things the right way. The line rang twice before a brisk voice answered. "Detective Carlson." "Detective, this is Marcus Williams," he said. "Hell's Angels, Oakland. I'm the one who called earlier about the little girl Emma Martinez." There was a pause on the other end, long enough for the engines around him to fill his ear. "Yes, Mr. Williams," Carlson said finally. "We are aware of your involvement. What's your situation?" "We have located the suspect vehicle," Marcus said. "Gray Chevy Impala, partial plate matches what I gave the dispatcher. It is parked outside the old Morrison Auto Parts warehouse on 73rd. The hood is still warm. Your suspect, Ray Hutchkins, is likely inside with the child." More silence. Marcus pictured Carlson somewhere in the downtown building, fluorescent lights bouncing off a desk stacked with files. "How did you—" Carlson began, then cut himself off. "Never mind. Listen carefully. Do not enter the building. Do not interfere with officers when they arrive." Marcus could feel eyes on him now. Brothers had paused what they were doing, watching his face, reading the tension. "With respect, detective," he said, "your officer on the phone made it very clear you are not interested in taking directions from men like me. So let me rephrase. I am not giving you orders. I am giving you a deadline." "Mr. Williams, you have 30 minutes, Marcus said, voice flattening to steel. 30 minutes to get officers here, secure that building, and bring Emma Martinez out alive. After that, I have about 2,500 bikers who are going to surround this warehouse in a way your department cannot ignore. And every news camera in this city is going to be watching." "You are talking about obstruction of justice," Carlson snapped. "About intimidation. About potential charges that will put you back inside for a very long time." Marcus thought of Emma's backpack in the bed of Carlos's truck, of Rose's hands shaking as she held the photo, of the bruise on a 6-year-old arm. "I have done time before," he said. "I can do it again. What I cannot do is sleep knowing I stood in a parking lot and listened to a little girl scream while everyone discussed policy." A beat then. You cannot threaten law enforcement, Carlson said, but the words sounded tired now, like they were for someone else's benefit. I am not threatening you, Marcus said. I am stating facts. You know how this will look if it gets out that a motorcycle club found her while OPD was still verifying. Or that you had her location and told us to wait. The engines hummed at his back, a chorus of unspoken agreement. On the line, Carlson exhaled. Units are en route, he said. We are mobilizing now. I want your assurance that your people will not enter that building. You have my word that we will give you every chance to do your job, Marcus said. But understand this, detective. If I hear a single shot from in there and no one going in after her, I am not holding these men back, and neither are you. He ended the call before Carlson could answer. Big Mike arched a brow. How'd that go? As well as it needed to, Marcus said. They're coming, but we're not stepping aside. He turned, taking in the full picture. Bikes lined both curbs now, men in patched vests, posted at corners at alley mouths by the fence. A handful of unfamiliar faces, reporters, had started to appear at the far end of the block, cameras resting on their shoulders, sniffing for a story. They were standing on the edge of something that could go very right or very wrong. He felt the weight of his choices in his bones. Listen up, he called, raising his voice just enough to cut through the rumble. Conversations tapered off. Heads turned. The block's attention tightened around him. OPD is on their way, he said. They know we found the car. They know we believe Emma is inside. We hold the perimeter. We let them take the door first. We do not give them an excuse to turn this into a riot. A few grumbles. A few nods. But hear me now, Marcus went on. We are not leaving. We are not backing down. We are not letting that girl vanish because someone downtown is afraid of bad press. If they do right by her, we stand down. If they drag their feet, we step up. Big Mike's voice rumbled from beside him, low and sure. This is our line, he said. We hold it. The brothers answered not with cheers, but with the sound of engines rising in one shared growl, a vow made of gasoline and steel. Marcus looked back at the warehouse. Somewhere behind that rust and rot was a scared child who had believed a stranger at a stoplight might be her last chance. Hang on, kid, he murmured too softly for anyone else to hear. Help is here, whether they like it or not. He settled in to wait, the ticking clock loud in his head, as the first distant wail of approaching sirens began to weave into the roar of the bikes. The sirens reached them before the cruisers did. They started as a high, thin wail at the edge of the engine's low thunder, growing louder until they wove themselves into the soundscape of the block. Marcus watched the patrol cars turn in one by one, lights strobing off chrome and rust, and the pale faces of the news crews now clustered at the far end of the street. Oakland's here, Wrench muttered near his shoulder. About time. 4 black and white units angled across the road, boxing in one end of the block. Officers spilled out, hands resting near weapons, eyes scanning the wall of leather and patches facing them. Nobody reached for a gun, but nobody looked relaxed either. Marcus could almost feel the calculus happening behind their eyes, known gang-heavy presence, unknown intent. Every training manual they had ever read was yelling at them to take control. Problem was, control had gotten away from them the minute a little girl chose to trust a man in a cut instead of a badge. A 5th car rolled up slower than the others. Plain sedan, unmarked but obvious. Detective Carlson stepped out, tie loosened sleeves rolled to his forearm. He looked like a man very aware there were cameras pointed at him from 3 different angles. He took in the scene, the bikes, the brothers, holding positions along the fence and alley mouths, the gray Impala near the loading bay. His mouth tightened. He walked toward Marcus, stopping just short of the invisible line between cops and club. "Mr. Williams," he said. "Detective." Marcus's voice was even. "You took my call." Carlson's gaze flicked past him to the warehouse, then back. "You realize this is an active police scene," he said. "Your presence here in these numbers is not helpful." Marcus tipped his chin toward the Impala. "Her presence here makes it my business," he said. "We found your car. We drew you a map. You're welcome." Carlson's jaw worked. "You interfere," he said quietly, "and this turns into something nobody can walk back from." Marcus thought about that, really thought about it. He looked around at the line of brothers, old-timers with prison ink, faded to blue ghosts, younger men with fresh tattoos and newer scars. He saw the way they stood weight forward on the balls of their feet like they were holding themselves in check by will alone. He saw the cameras beyond them, lenses hungry, waiting for a story to chew on. And under all of it, he saw a 6-year-old girl in pink sneakers, pressed against a window with a piece of notebook paper and more courage than any of them deserved. "My being here already changed things," he said. "You and I both know if this was some kid from the hills, you'd have half the department crawling over that warehouse by now. Emma's from the flatlands. She doesn't have that luxury. All she's got is us." Carlson's eyes flashed, but there was something like reluctant understanding there too. He was not a bad man. He was just part of a machine that moved slower for some people than others. "SWAT is en route," he said. "We're setting a perimeter and making a plan. You will not go inside. Are we clear?" Marcus glanced at the warehouse, at the quiet sheet metal face giving nothing away. He thought about the minutes ticking by, each one another chance for Ray to panic, to hurt her, to decide on some final terrible act. "How long to make that plan?" he asked. "How long to write up the forms that say it's okay to save a kid?" Carlson didn't answer. Marcus huffed out a humorless breath. "Look," he said, "you do what you have to do. I get that. You've got bosses and rules and reports. I've got one 6-year-old who wrote herself into my life this morning. That's it. That's all." He leaned in just enough that the microphones on the cameras wouldn't catch it. "And if this goes bad on your watch," he murmured, "if I hear her scream and nobody moves, I am not worrying about what you charge me with. Pelican Bay already took 8 years from me. It can have the rest if it means she gets out." There it was. The lock. He felt it click into place inside him, heavy and undeniable. His freedom weighed against her life. His future against her chance at one. On any scale that mattered, it wasn't a choice at all. Carlson must have seen something change in his face, because his own expression shifted from warning to something closer to resignation. "You are on parole," the detective said softly. "You do understand that going anywhere near that building when I tell you not to could mean you go back inside for a very long time." Marcus shrugged one shoulder. "I understand that I'm 56, he said. "My knees hurt in the winter. Half my friends are buried. And a little girl asked me for help. What's left of my life is not more important than that." Carlos joined them, then stepping up on Marcus's other side, presence solid. "You should also understand," Carlos told Carlson, "that he is not the only one who feels that way. You see all these men, they have daughters, granddaughters, nieces. You think you can hold them back while a child is in there. You are smarter than that, detective." Carlson looked past them again at the gathered bikers. The men were not shouting threats or waving weapons. They were just there, a dense, immovable line of leather and intent. He rubbed a hand over his face, as if trying to wipe away the day. "Give me 15 minutes," he said finally. "We get eyes inside. We make contact. You keep your people where they are. No advances, no posturing, nothing to escalate. If we move you, let us move." Marcus held his gaze. 15, he said, not one more. Carlson nodded once and turned away, barking orders to his officers. They peeled off to set up tape and cones to radio, in positions to start the dance their manuals prescribed. Marcus stepped back to where Big Mike and Wrench waited near the curb. "Well," Big Mike asked. "He's going to try," Marcus said. "We give him that." And if he fails, Marcus didn't answer right away. He looked down the line again. A man from Sacramento adjusted his gloves. Another from San Jose handed a bottle of water to the kid posted near the alley. Prophet Carlos walked along the fence line, checking in with each small cluster, his hand on shoulders, his words low and steady. Most of these men had criminal records. Many had seen the inside of a cell. All of them had chosen to come here knowing exactly what it might cost. "Then we write a different plan," Marcus said quietly. "One that does not end with her in a body bag." He turned to Wrench. "Get me Ray's number," he said. "If they're dragging out entry, we're not waiting for SWAT to introduce themselves. We talk to him first." Wrench nodded, already moving toward the laptop in the back of Carlos's truck. Big Mike studied Marcus's face. "You sure you want to be the one on that call?" he asked. "Once you step into that role, you're the man they remember when they start pointing fingers." Marcus thought of his file in some cabinet downtown. The charges, the mugshot, the words "violent offender" stamped in black ink. He thought of the way the officer on the phone had said his name like a warning. "I've been the man they remember for worse," he said. "Might as well be for this." Big Mike's smile was thin, respectful. "That's fair." Minutes stretched. The sirens faded as additional units arrived and parked farther out. The neighborhood began to notice what was happening. A few faces gathered at the ends of intersecting streets, phones held up to record. The news crews murmured into cameras, gesturing at the warehouse, at the biker wall, at the cops. In the middle of it all, Marcus stood very still, feeling time like a physical weight on his shoulders. He remembered the first time a cell door had closed behind him. The finality of it. The sound like the end of a chapter. He remembered promising himself that, if he ever got out, he would never again put his fate in someone else's hands. Now here he was doing exactly that for a child who didn't know his name. Except that was not quite true. He still had one lever left to pull. Wrench jogged back, phone in hand. "Got it," he said. Pulled Ray's most recent number from an old booking record. "Still active. You want to do this here or closer to the door?" Marcus glanced at the warehouse, at the blank metal skin hiding whatever was happening inside. "Closer," he said. "If he looks out a window, I want him to see me, and everything behind me." He took the phone. It felt strangely heavy, like more than plastic and circuitry. As he walked toward the front of the warehouse, Brothers subtly widened the lane, giving him space, making room for whatever came next. Behind him, the engines quieted to a low, expectant rumble. If this went sideways, Pelican Bay would get another shot at him. He kept walking anyway. He reached the edge of the loading bay, stopped just out of arm's reach of the man door, and lifted the phone to his ear. "Dial it," he told Wrench. The line began to ring. The phone rang in Marcus's ear, each pulse a little louder than the last. Behind him, the engines had settled into a low collective rumble. Hundreds of bikes idling together sounded like a distant storm pinned over the block, waiting for someone to decide which way it would break. He stared at the scarred metal door in front of him, close enough to see the rust blooming around the knob, the greasy fingerprints at shoulder height. Somewhere beyond that thin skin of steel, a grown man held a little girl hostage and pretended it was about love. The line clicked. A voice came through, too loud, too jumpy. "Yeah, Ray Hutchkins." Marcus did not phrase it as a question. "My name is Marcus Williams." Silence stretched, then snapped. "You with the cops," Ray demanded. "Because I already told them I'm not a cop," Marcus said. "I'm the man standing outside your door. I'm with the Hells Angels Oakland chapter. And right now, I'm the person you need to be talking to if you want this to end with you still breathing." The tone on the other end shifted. He could hear Ray trying to figure out which story to tell. "I didn't do anything," Ray said quickly. "She's my daughter. This is a family thing. She wanted to come with me." Marcus let the lie hang there a second, then cut it in half. "She wrote a note begging for help and pressed it to a car window at a red light," he said. "She put her name on it. She said you took her. I saw the bruise on her arm, so let's not waste time pretending you're the good guy here." There was a harsh exhale like Ray had been punched. "You don't know anything about it," Ray snapped. "Her mother poisoned her against me. She called the cops on me. I'm just trying to see my kid." Behind Marcus, an engine revved, once impatient. He could feel the brothers at his back like a wall. "Here's what I know," Marcus said, voice steady. "You grabbed a 6-year-old from a playground. You stuffed her in a car. You've had her hidden for days. Every cop out here has your record on a screen right now, and not a single word of it spells concerned father." The noise on the other end went thin, like Ray had moved the phone away to look out a window. Marcus lifted his eyes toward the building, scanning for a crack in the boards, a shadow, anything. "See, that's the part you're not getting yet," he went on. "You're not just dealing with police. You're dealing with two sets of people. One of them cares very much about paperwork. The other cares very much about little girls not disappearing." Ray's voice came back shakier. "What do you want?" he asked. "There you go," Marcus said. "That's the right question." He tilted his head, feeling the weight of every listening ear behind him, every camera pointed their way. "What I want," he said, "is for Emma to walk out of that door alive and unharmed. What you want is to walk out in one piece. The only way those two wants happen at the same time is if you listen very carefully to what I'm about to tell you." Ray laughed, high and brittle. "And if I don't," he said, "you and your biker buddy's gonna kick in the door, beat me to death on the news." Marcus did not rise to it. Rage would not help Emma. He banked it, used it to sharpen the edges of his words. "If I wanted to beat you to death," he said, voice dropping, "I would not be on the phone." He let the quiet stretch just long enough for that to land. "Look outside, Ray," he said. "Not too far, don't get cute. Peek through a crack in the boards. Tell me what you see." There was a shuffle, a creak. Marcus pictured Ray moving toward some filthy little gap in the metal and plywood phone pressed to his ear. The seconds dragged. "Oh shit," Ray breathed. Marcus could almost see it through his eyes, both curbs packed with bikes, patch after patch, chrome catching the afternoon light. Police cruisers, nose forward. News vans with dishes raised. Men in vests posted like sentries. "Yeah," Marcus said softly. "That's what 2,500 brothers looks like when a 6-year-old asks for help." "You brought all of them," Ray's voice climbed. "For this, for me, not for you," Marcus said. "For her?" He let that sink in. "Here's how this works," he continued. Option 1, you send Emma out that door right now. First, alone. No games. She walks straight to the officers waiting out here. Then you follow hands where everyone can see them. You get on your knees. You let them put cuffs on you. You go to jail. Ray made a choking sound. That's not an option, he said. I'm not going back inside. They'll kill me in there. You're going in either way, Marcus said. Kidnapping, child endangerment, breaking a restraining order. None of this ends with you going home to crack a beer on your couch. The only thing we're deciding now is whether you go in breathing or not. Option 1 gets you protective custody. Some lawyer tries to make you look sad for the jury. You spend your days tucked away with the rest of the ones who hurt kids and hope nobody forgets you exist. Option 2, Ray asked, voice raw. Marcus stared at the door. Option 2 is you make me come in, he said. He thought of Pelican Bay. Cold concrete. Hot rage. The way men learned to hurt each other where cameras could not see. I did 8 years at one of the worst prisons in this state, he went on, words flat. I learned every way a man can suffer without dying. I learned how to keep someone just this side of breathing for a very long time. You want me to bring that education through your front door? Ray's breathing shifted from manic to wheezing panic, pushing against his rib cage. You can't threaten me like that, he said. I'll tell them. I'll tell the cops. You think they're not listening, Marcus cut in. You think every mic on this street isn't pointed at me right now, trying to figure out if I'm the villain they wrote about 20 years ago or something else. I am being very clear, Ray. Every man out here can hear this call. Every mother watching the news tonight will hear what you did. That is who you're really afraid of, and you should be. He adjusted his grip on the phone. But let me tell you something important, he added. I am not going to hurt you if you do the right thing now. I do not put hands on people smaller than me or weaker than me just because I can. That's your hobby, not mine. I never touched her like that, Ray blurted. I never. You grabbed a 6-year-old hard enough to leave your fingers stamped on her arm, Marcus said. You dragged her out of her life because her mother finally had the courage to say no. You used a child as a weapon. I don't care what words you put on top of that. The shape underneath stays the same. There was a small sound in the background then. Not Ray. Higher. Softer. A sniff. A stifled breath. Emma. Marcus's chest clenched. Emma, he said into the phone, voice softening for the first time. Sweetheart, if you can hear me, my name is Marcus. Remember the man at the window? I kept my promise. I am right outside. There are a lot of people out here who want to see you go home to your mama. He pictured her in their small body, curled in a corner, clutching herself into the smallest ball she could manage. He hoped she could hear even a piece of what he was saying. Ray hissed something muffled away from the receiver. The little sound faded. Do not talk to her, Ray snapped. You don't get to talk to her. She asked me to, Marcus said simply. When she pressed that note to the glass, she asked any decent human being who saw it to give a damn. I am doing that. You still can. He took a breath. Here is what is going to happen, he said. You are going to walk to that door. You are going to open it. You are going to let Emma walk out ahead of you. You are not going to grab her. You are not going to hide behind her. You are not going to reach for anything but the sky. If you try to use her as a shield, every cop out here is going to treat you like a live weapon. You promise they won't shoot me, Ray whispered. I promise you they would prefer to arrest you than write a report about your body, Marcus said. I promise you I will tell every camera here that you surrendered if you do this right. but I am done making guarantees on behalf of a system that already told me it does not take orders from men like me. You want mercy, start by giving some. On the other end, Ray was very quiet. Through the thin door, Marcus thought he heard the faint scrape of someone standing up, the shuffle of feet on concrete. "They are going to take her away from me," Ray said, voice breaking. "Rosa's going to make sure I never see her again." "That part was decided the minute you put your hands on that kid," Marcus said gently. "What you are deciding now is whether the last thing she remembers about you is the man who stole her life, or the man who finally let her go." "More silence," Ray Marcus said. "Clock's running. The longer you wait, the fewer choices you have. Right now, you can still walk out. 30 minutes from now, you might only crawl." A long, shuddering breath came through the line. "Okay," Ray said. "Okay, I'll send her out. But you swear they won't let you animals come in here after me?" "You are going to walk to that door," Marcus repeated. "You are going to open it. You are going to send Emma out first. Then you are going to do exactly what the officers tell you. I am not stepping foot inside that building unless you force me to. That part is up to you." The line went quiet. "No static, no breathing, nothing?" Ray Marcus asked. No answer. He pulled the phone away to check the screen. The call had ended. For a heartbeat, the whole block seemed to hold the same breath. Engines idled. Sirens wailed faintly somewhere beyond the cordon. Radios crackled. Marcus's eyes went to the door. The knob twitched. Metal scraped against metal. The handle began to turn. The door cracked open only an inch before it stopped. Jerked back tight, like someone inside had grabbed the handle and changed their mind at the last possible second. A thin slice of darkness showed through the gap. No movement, no breath, nothing. Marcus didn't move. Neither did anyone behind him. The entire block held still, as if any sound, any shift might spook the man inside. Then a soft whimper bled through the gap. Not Ray. Higher, smaller. Emma. Marcus's heart slammed once against his ribs. He stepped forward, not enough to cross any lines, but enough that his voice would carry cleanly. "Emma," he said gently. "Sweetheart, it's okay. You can come out now." Another sound. The careful scrape of tiny shoes on concrete. A shadow appeared behind the crack. A small outlined shoulders, curled inward head, bowed like she was bracing for a blow. The door opened another inch. Enough for a sliver of her face to appear. Her eyes were red wet, but she was looking at him. And in that look was a kind of raw hope that made Marcus's throat burn. "You're safe now," he murmured. "Come on out. Nobody out here is going to hurt you." Behind him, Carlson raised a hand to his officers, signaling them to hold. No rush, no shouting, no sudden charge. They knew what could happen if the wrong person moved too fast. Emma stepped closer to the door, but hesitated, her small fingers gripping the metal edge like it was the last solid thing she had. Then Ray's voice snapped out behind her, sharp, frantic. "Go, just go, hurry." Marcus froze. There was something in the tone that didn't match surrender. Panic, yes, but not the fear of a man giving up. Something else. Something sharper. Emma flinched but obeyed. She edged through the door, squeezing herself sideways, thin shoulders scraping the metal frame. When she cleared it, she didn't run to the officers. She ran to Marcus. She flew at him so fast he barely had time to brace before her arms locked around his leg, tiny fingers digging into leather face, pressed into his thigh, as if she wanted to disappear into him. He knelt, arms coming around her automatically. "I got you," he whispered into her hair. I got you. You're okay." Her body shook with silent sobs, no sound, just tremors. The kind that come from fear too deep for tears. Behind him, someone exhaled. Maybe Wrench. Maybe Big Mike. Maybe one of the younger guys who hadn't expected to feel anything today. Carlson stepped forward carefully, hands low and open. "Emma," he said softly. "I'm Officer Carlson. I'm here to take you to your mom." She didn't even look up. She only clung tighter to Marcus' fingers curling into the fabric of his vest. Marcus glanced at Carlson. "Give her a minute," he said. Carlson nodded, but before he could speak again, the door slammed shut. Hard. The sound ricocheted off metal and concrete, slicing through the fragile quiet. Marcus rose instantly, shielding Emma with his body. Behind him, 20 engines revved in reflex. Officers tensed. Cameras swung. The entire block shifted toward fight or flight. Carlson shouted, "Hold positions, hold!" From inside the warehouse came a different sound. A bang. Not a gunshot. Something heavier. A crate overturned. A crash. The scrape of boots pacing in frenzied circles. Ray's voice rose again higher, now unraveling. "You liars," he screamed. "You said they wouldn't come. You tricked me, all of you." He was losing it. Fast. Marcus felt Emma flinch at the shouting. He cupped her head gently, shielding her ears. "It's okay," he murmured. "He can't touch you now. You're safe. Stay behind me." Carlson motioned sharply to 2 officers. "Get her out of here," he ordered. But Emma wouldn't let go of Marcus. When the officers approached, she pressed closer, shaking her head violently, breath hitching in her throat. Marcus met Carlson's gaze. "Let me walk her back," he said. "She trusts me. Don't make this harder on her." Carlson hesitated, then nodded once. Marcus lifted her carefully, cradling her against his chest. She tucked her face into his shoulder, arms wrapped around his neck. He started walking her toward the safety line, speaking softly the whole way. "You're doing good, sweetheart. You're brave. Your mom's waiting for you. She's going to be so happy to see you." Behind them, Ray's voice spiraled in the warehouse, echoing off empty metal walls. Don't take her, she's mine, she's mine." It was the sound of someone climbing a cliff made of their own delusions and slipping fast. Just as Marcus stepped past the first row of bikes, Emma lifted her head a little and whispered against his collar, "Is he going to hurt my mama?" Marcus stopped walking. His jaw tightened. "No," he said, voice low, heavy as iron. "Not ever again." And it wasn't a promise, it was a guarantee. He handed Emma to the waiting officers, slow and careful, never letting her feel jostled. One of the female officers' young, kind eyes wrapped her in a blanket and whispered soothing things Marcus couldn't hear. Emma clung to the blanket, but before she was taken into the cruiser, she turned her head toward Marcus. "Thank you," she whispered. And though her voice trembled, the words did not. Marcus bowed his head once, a vow, a goodbye, an oath, all wrapped into one. Then the cruiser door closed, and Emma was taken towards safety out of sight. The block felt different now, not lighter, not calmer, more focused. The tension turned sharper, coiled into something cold and dangerous. Wrench stepped beside Marcus. "He's spiraling," Wrench said. "He's not coming out clean." "No," Marcus agreed. "He's not." Inside the warehouse, Ray roared again, a raw, wordless sound that carried madness in every syllable. Carlson signaled his team. "Breach," he ordered. Now, SWAT officers in heavy gear moved forward, with the efficiency of men who had drilled this exact moment 1,000 times. Shields up, weapons raised, flashbangs ready. But before they could reach the loading bay, before even 10 steps closed the distance, a single gunshot cracked from inside. Short, sharp, lonely. Everything froze. Carlos inhaled sharply. Wrench swore under his breath. Marcus didn't move, not even to blink. Carlson's face changed, tightened in the way only men who've heard that sound enough times understand. "Go," he barked. SWAT surged toward the warehouse. Officers followed. The news cameras lunged forward. And the bikers, they didn't rush. They didn't shout. They didn't move a muscle. They simply stood in absolute silence, hundreds of men in leather hands at their sides, jaws locked, eyes fixed on that door. Not because they wanted vengeance, but because they understood something in that moment. A man who makes a child afraid has already written the ending to his own story. Marcus watched the officers disappear inside the steel door, swinging behind them with a hollow clang. He didn't know what they would find in there, but he knew what Emma would never have to face again. And when Big Mike came up beside him and said, "Lo, whatever happens next, you did right," Marcus didn't answer. He just kept his eyes on the warehouse door, steady, unflinching, waiting for the truth to come out, one way or another. The warehouse exhaled smoke and silence when the SWAT team finally stepped back out. Their boots were streaked with dust, their faces stiff with the neutrality officers practiced when the truth was too jagged to handle openly. Carlson didn't say anything at first. He didn't have to. The air around him already carried the verdict. They'd found the man, and the man wouldn't trouble anyone again. But that wasn't the part Marcus cared about. He waited until Carlson finished quiet, murmured orders with the tactical unit before he approached. The late afternoon sun cast jagged shadows across the asphalt, turning the broken concrete into a chessboard of light and dark. Engines idled behind him, a low, pulsing growl echoing through the industrial park like thunder waiting for its cue. Detective Marcus said. Carlson dragged a hand across his jaw. "Scene's secure." "What else?" Carlson hesitated. It was brief but noticeable, just enough time for a man to choose his words carefully. "There's evidence inside," he said finally. "A lot of it." Marcus held his stare. "What kind of evidence?" "The kind that ends careers," Carlson said. "And the kind that makes people disappear into federal witness lists." Wrench let out a low whistle. "So that bastard was into more than kidnapping." Carlson didn't respond, but his silence acted like confirmation. Marcus's voice stayed level. "We're seeing it." Carlson stiffened. "This is an active crime scene." "Which started," Marcus said, "because we found it." For a few seconds no one breathed. Officers shifted their weight. Bikers straightened slightly. The wind curled through the alleyway, scattering dry leaves like restless thoughts. Then Carlson made a decision. "Stay close," he said. He led them inside. The warehouse swallowed them whole, musty air, cold steel, and a lingering burn of cordite. The lighting was dim streaks of sunlight slicing through cracks in the corrugated walls. The floor was scattered with crates, broken furniture, and the kind of debris that collected when a place had been used for things no one documented on paper. But the center of the room was unnervingly clean. Too clean. A desk. A metal chair. A stack of ledgers, arranged in a perfect square. A phone charger plugged into an extension cord. A laptop whose screen still glowed faint blue. Evidence bags spread across the concrete, some sealed, some waiting. Marcus moved closer. Wrench crouched beside a small pile of Polaroids, dozens of them faces, blurred hands, bound time-stamped with ink across the bottom edge. Written by hand. Sloppy handwriting. Familiar. This was bigger than one man, Wrench muttered. Carlson crossed his arms. He kept records. Contacts. drop sites, cash movements, names. And what else? Marcus asked. Carlson exhaled slowly, almost reluctantly. Payments. To men higher than him. A network. Marcus felt something dark settle in his chest. Not rage. Something harder. A sense of how deep rot could run before anyone noticed the smell. Prophet Carlos approached the laptop. The timestamp's still active, he said. Look, the screen displayed a folder labeled with a date. That date matched the morning Emma wrote her note. Inside the folder were video clips, some short, some longer, that made Carlson flinch before he hid it behind a professional mask. This is evidence, Carlson said firmly. This goes through the system. Correctly, Marcus nodded. Good. But he wasn't looking at the screen anymore. He was looking at the open drawer beside the desk. Inside was a small velvet box, dark red, frayed at the corner. Something about it made the air feel heavier. Without touching it, Marcus knew it mattered. He leaned closer. Detective, he said. Carlson followed his gaze and stiffened. Inside the velvet box lay a charm necklace, cheap beads, faded pastels, the kind schoolchildren made in after-school programs. A butterfly charm hung in the middle, purple and chipped. Wrench whispered, "That looks like Emma's," Marcus said. Her mother told us she never took it off. The tiny clasp was broken. The weight of it settled around all of them. This was more than evidence. This was a child's last piece of innocence ripped away and tossed into a drawer, like scrap metal. Marcus closed the drawer gently, as if shielding the little object from further harm. Carlson cleared his throat. There's one more thing. He led them toward the office at the far end of the warehouse. The door hung crooked on its hinge. Inside, a corkboard covered the wall maps, photos, receipts pinned in jagged patterns, threads linked clusters together. Bundles of notes were taped in rows, each marked with a location name. The scale of it stole the room's remaining warmth. Carlos ran a gloved hand across the nearest marker. Oakland Pier, Airport Cut-Through, Old Rail Yard. These are traffic routes. Routes for what Wrench asked. Carlson's voice lowered. Transport. Human. Young ones. Old ones. Doesn't matter. He moved people. Sold them. Traded them. Marcus felt his jaw clench, an old anger rising from somewhere deep inside him, something shaped like memory, sharpened by experience. And nobody stopped him. Carlson's jaw tightened. We were tracking someone above him. He was a small piece of a bigger operation. Small pieces don't take little girls from playgrounds, Marcus said. Agreed, Carlson replied quietly. But the man above him, he's still out there. The room felt smaller now, the air thick. Marcus looked at the board again. The web of lines. The coded notes. The patterns. There was method. There was strategy. And there was a name circled in red. A name that had been in the background since the beginning. Wrench. Read it aloud. Derringer Gray. Silence rippled through the room. Marcus didn't look away from the red circle. That's the next problem. Carlson rubbed his temple. And he's careful. He doesn't leave evidence. He doesn't leave witnesses. Marcus stepped back, gaze steady. He left one. Carlson blinked. Marcus turned toward the door, toward the sunlight where Emma had disappeared minutes before. She saw things, he said. She remembered details, a smell, a voice, something. Kids notice everything adults dismiss. Carlson considered that. Slowly his posture shifted, the realization settling over him like a new weight. And Marcus said one more thing, soft but certain. He made a mistake letting her live. The detective swallowed. Then we protect her. Damn right we do, Wrench said. Marcus didn't blink. We protect her and we take the man behind all this apart piece by piece. Carlson's eyes sharpened. You planning to insert yourself into this investigation? We already did, Marcus said. And we're not stopping. It was not a threat. It was a partnership neither man asked for but both understood. Outside the engine still idled a low waiting hum that carried through the broken walls like a storm preparing to move. Carlson straightened. We catalog everything. Seal it. Chain of custody from this moment forward. As officers began bagging evidence, Marcus turned toward the door. The sunlight hit his face warm and blinding. But the warmth didn't reach his eyes, because the warehouse had revealed more than the truth. It had revealed the next enemy, the next hunt, and the next chapter in a war none of them had chosen, but all of them were now bound to finish. Marcus stepped back into the light leather vest, catching the glow like a banner. Behind him, the warehouse held its ghosts. Ahead of him, the fight waited, and he walked straight toward it. Night settled over Oakland like a heavy blanket thick with fog and the promise of unfinished business. Marcus stood outside the clubhouse, hands on the railing, watching the street lamps flicker against the mist. The warehouse had delivered the truth, but the truth had teeth. And its name circled in red ink was Derringer Gray. A man like Gray didn't vanish into the dark. He built it. He lived inside it. And if he thought the collapse of one of his pawns would slow things down, he didn't know the men coming for him. Behind Marcus, the clubhouse door creaked open. Prophet Carlos stepped out, wiping grease from his hands with an old shop rag. You ready, brother? Marcus didn't turn. He's going to run. Men like him always do. Carlos leaned on the railing beside him. Not if we cut off every road before he finds it. Marcus finally looked at him. Your guys get a hit, Carlos nodded. One of the young techs, Diego, he pulled metadata off the laptop. Gray logged in from 3 places in the last month. Pierside storage on the marina, a night clinic out on East 57th, and something called the Mirror Room. Marcus's jaw tightened. Mirror Room. No address, Carlos said. Just the name, and a GPS tag that pinged for 60 seconds before disappearing. Wrench appeared in the doorway behind them, vest half-buckled. Wrench, still stuck in one pocket like he'd forgotten to put it down. We've got eyes on the marina. Couple of our guys are already posted, but the place looks dead. Marcus pushed off the railing. Then it's not dead. It's waiting. The marina at night was silent in a way that felt unnatural, like something had pressed a mute button on the world. Boats rocked gently, lines creaking against metal hooks. Fog curled in low, clinging to the water with ghostly fingers. Marcus arrived with Wrench, Carlos, and half a dozen riders. They moved like shadows, quiet, controlled, but ready. The storage unit they were looking for sat near the pier's edge, metal walls, rusted and dented by years of salt and cold air. A single light flickered above the door, weak and sickly yellow. Carlos approached first, crouching beside the lock. It's new, he murmured. New lock on an old door. Marcus nodded once. Break it. Carlos snapped the bolt with a small hydraulic cutter. The door groaned as Wrench pulled it upward. And then the smell hit them. Cold, chemical, disinfectant, old sweat. Something darker, metallic, and sharp. Marcus flicked on his flashlight. Inside the unit sat a single steel table, chains attached at each corner. A ring light hung from the ceiling, still warm. A camera sat on a tripod pointed directly at the table. Next to it, a small medical tray held gloves, wipes, and empty vials. Wrench muttered a curse under his breath. Carlos turned away, jaw clenched, forcing slow breaths through his nose. This wasn't a storage unit, it was a holding room, a filming room. Evidence that whatever Gray ran, it was bigger, crueler, and more organized than they imagined. Marcus stepped forward, scanning the floor. Tracks, boot prints, fresh. Someone was here recently, he said. Carlos moved to the camera, checking the memory card slot. Empty. Marcus pointed to the scuff marks leading toward the back wall. That's not all. Look. Wrench squinted. There's no door. Marcus pressed his palm flat to the metal panel. Cold. Solid. Then he noticed the faint outline, a square cut almost invisible. A hidden exit. He hit it once with his fist. Hollow. There's a tunnel, Marcus said. He was here. He heard us coming. Carlos exhaled slowly. Then he's already running. No, Marcus said. He's circling. Men like Gray don't flee. They retreat. They reposition. And they strike. Wrench stepped back, phone vibrating in his pocket. He answered it, listened, then cursed again. That was Big Mike. You're not going to like this. Marcus turned. Tell me. He got a call from Rosa. Marcus's stomach tightened. What happened? She came home, Wrench said softly, and found her front door cracked open. Marcus felt every muscle in his back coil. She's safe, Wrench added quickly. She wasn't inside. She called from the building across the street. But someone went through her place. Carlos looked at Marcus. You know what that means? Marcus nodded slowly. Gray saw the news. He knows Emma survived. And now he knows who she belongs to. A cold wind shoved hard against the marina walls, rattling the chains on the steel table. Marcus turned toward the exit. We go now. All of us. By the time they reached Rosa's block, officers had taped off the door. Rosa stood with a blanket around her shoulders, shaking but refusing to sit. The hallway buzzed with quiet tension, officers speaking low, neighbors peeking through cracked doors, the echo of something violated lingering in the air. Marcus approached her gently. Rosa, he said, are you hurt? She shook her head. No, I'm okay. But someone was in my home. Her voice cracked. Emma's backpack. It was on the couch. But I left it in her room. Marcus's breath left him like a punch. What else? He asked softly. Rosa wiped her eyes. The window was open. I never opened that window. Emma's drawings on the fridge, they were rearranged. Rearranged how Marcus asked. Rosa swallowed hard. The one of the butterfly. The one she drew when she turned 5. It was placed in the center, like someone wanted it to stand out. Carlos's jaw tightened. He was sending a message. Wrench muttered, sick bastard. Marcus crouched, so he was at Rosa's eye level. Listen to me. He's trying to scare you. But he's not getting close to Emma. Where is she? Rosa whispered. With officers, Marcus said. Safe, guarded. Rosa's eyes brimmed again. He won't stop, will he? Marcus shook his head once. No. Not until someone makes him. Rosa gripped his hand. Then make him. Marcus squeezed gently. I will. He stood turning toward the officers. Detective Carlson. Carlson walked over, his expression grim. We found prints. Partial. And a mark on the windowsill boot tread. Not Ray. Too heavy. Too clean, Gray Marcus said. Carlson nodded. He wants you to know he was here. Marcus stared down the dark hallway toward Rosa's apartment. He wanted more than that, he murmured. He wanted to get close enough to smell what fear looks like. But he didn't, Carlson said. He didn't get what he came for. Marcus didn't answer. His mind was already moving, calculating, scanning the city in his head, tracing routes, remembering the hidden exit in the marina, the cold table, the camera, the network, the routes, the patterns, the man who moved like smoke. Carlos stepped closer. "You're thinking the same thing I am." Marcus nodded once. "He's going to run," Marcus said. "But he's not running far." Wrench straightened his vest. "So what's the play?" Marcus turned toward the stairwell, the dim light catching the hard set of his jaw. "We cut off his exits. All of them." And then Carlos asked. Marcus locked eyes with him, voice low and certain. "Then we end this." The building hummed with distant city noise, the hum of streetlights, the muffled passing of cars, the cold whisper of wind through old vents. But underneath it all, something else moved. Resolve, rage, a promise. And it carried the weight of a man who'd chosen his path, knowing exactly where it would lead. Straight to Derringer Gray. And straight through him. Morning light slid through the blinds of the small Oakland hospital room, turning everything soft and golden. Emma sat cross-legged on the bed, her new stuffed bear tucked under one arm, her pink shoes dangling above the floor. She wasn't speaking much yet, not in full sentences, but she was humming, a quiet, fragile little tune she didn't seem fully aware she was making. Rosa sat beside her, stroking her daughter's hair, eyes red but steady. For the first time in many long days, fear wasn't the only thing living inside her. Relief had finally pushed its way in, too. Marcus waited at the door hands in the pockets of his faded jeans boots still dusty from the night before. He didn't step in until Rosa looked up and nodded. "You can come in," she said, voice soft and hoarse. He moved slowly, as if afraid of breaking the fragile peace in the room. When Emma glanced at him, her humming stopped. Her fingers tightened around the stuffed bear. Then she gave a tiny wave, just a flick of her hand. But it was enough. Marcus's chest loosened. "Hey there, sweetheart." Emma's wave got a little stronger. Rosa smiled through exhaustion. "She remembers. She's stronger than all of us," Marcus said. Rosa nodded. "She is." A nurse entered quietly, with forms, spoke softly to Rosa, then stepped out again. The room fell into a gentle silence, broken only by the distant beeps of monitors in the hallway, and the soft hum Emma returned to. "Detective Carlson said they arrested Gray." Rosa whispered, careful not to let her daughter hear the name. "Is it true?" Marcus nodded once. "He made a mistake. Came back for something. A hard drive he thought he'd hidden well. Cops got him before sunrise." Rosa let out a breath, shaky, disbelieving. "So, it's really over." "For both of you," Marcus said. "For good." She closed her eyes, one hand pressed to her heart, the other still stroking Emma's hair. "I thought I'd lost her," she whispered. "You didn't," Marcus replied quietly. "And she didn't lose you." For a moment, the room held nothing but the soft rhythm of Emma's humming, the fragile piece of a nightmare ending. Then Rosa looked at him again, eyes shining. "You saved her." Marcus shook his head gently. "She saved herself. I just happened to see her. Any man with a pulse should have stopped. But not everyone would have done what you did," Rosa said. He didn't answer. The praise sat uncomfortably on him like a too heavy jacket. All he'd done was refuse to look away. The rest, the brothers showing up, the roar of engines surrounding a warehouse, the fury that followed, that wasn't heroism. That was responsibility. He shifted his weight, glancing at Emma again. The humming grew softer, almost shy, as if she sensed the conversation but couldn't grasp its meaning. Rosa took a breath. After she's discharged, we're moving. Far from here. A new start. Marcus nodded. Good. You won't mind if she wants to send you drawings, will you? The question surprised him, warmed him. I'd be honored, he said. Emma reached into the blanket beside her, pulling out a folded piece of paper. She looked from Marcus to her mother, then held the paper out with both hands. For you, she whispered. Marcus knelt beside the bed and took it slowly as if it were glass. He unfolded the drawing. Crayon lines filled the page. Bright colors, uneven strokes, the earnest effort of small, determined hands. A big motorcycle. A leather jacket. A little girl holding the hand of a tall man while a sun shone behind them in thick yellow rays. He swallowed hard. It's beautiful. Emma smiled. Small but real. Rosa's breath hitched. She wanted to give you that last night, but she wasn't ready. I'm glad she waited, Marcus said. This way I'll remember the moment too. You'll stay, Emma whispered, tiny voice cracking. Marcus reached out, gently brushing a stray curl from her forehead. I'll stay as long as you want me to. She nodded as if that settled something important in her world. A quiet knock sounded at the door. Big Mike peeked in, hat in hand, expression respectful. Behind him stood Prophet Carlos and Wrench, cleaned up, calmer now, but still carrying the weight of the last few days in their eyes. We wanted to check on the little one, Big Mike said softly. Emma lifted her bear in greeting. Rosa gestured them in. You can come say hello. They entered with the awkward carefulness of men who'd lived through violence, but didn't know quite what to do in hospital rooms. Wrench fumbled with his vest. Carlos stood with hands folded like he was in church, and Big Mike simply nodded at Emma with a kind of reverence, usually reserved for holy things. She doing okay? Big Mike asked Marcus quietly. Better than any of us, Marcus said. Mike nodded at the drawing in Marcus's hand. She made that for you. Yeah. Looks like she got your good side, Mike said with a faint smile. Emma giggled. The sound scattered the heaviness in the room like sunlight cracking open a storm cloud. Carlos stepped forward. We brought something. He held out a tiny leather vest, hand-stitched soft brown, the Hell's Angels emblem replaced with a simple white butterfly. For her, Carlos added. If it's okay. Rosa pressed a hand to her mouth. It's beautiful. Emma hugged it to her chest like treasure. The moment cracked them all open a little. Then Rosa looked at Marcus. What happens now? For you, Marcus sighed, leaning back against the wall. Life goes on. Rides. Repairs. Same old beats. But maybe different. Maybe better. Carlos nodded. Feels like the chapter turned a corner. Wrench added. Folks in the neighborhood see us different now. Kids waving and all that. Big Mike scratched his beard. Never thought I'd see the day where we were the good news. Emma swung her legs' pink shoes, tapping the metal rail. You times are times good. Marcus's throat tightened again. We try, sweetheart. Rosa squeezed his arm. Try is enough. The room filled with a soft, warm quiet. The kind that felt earned. The kind that came only after storms finally broke. Outside, a morning breeze rustled the hospital's thin curtains. Street sounds filtered in cars passing a distant bus, hissing to a stop, the muffled hum of a city waking up. Life moving on. Marcus stood. We'll let you rest. But if you need anything, anything at all, you call. Rosa nodded. Thank you. He turned to go, but Emma reached out and touched his sleeve. Don't leave yet. He smiled gently. I'll be right outside. Emma seemed satisfied with that. She settled back against her pillows, clutching the little vest. Wrench whispered, "She's tougher than any of us." Marcus nodded. "That's why she made it." They stepped into the hallway. Big Mike clapped Marcus on the shoulder as Carlos held the door open. "You did something good here, brother," Mike said. Marcus looked toward the window where morning sunlight spilled across the floor. "Wasn't just me," he said. "Never is." The four men walked down the corridor together. Boots echoing softly, leather creaking sunlight, stretching long shadows across the floor. Behind them, in a small hospital room warmed by morning light, a little girl with pink shoes hummed her quiet tune. Safe, home, healing. And somewhere deep inside the walls of the old clubhouse on Foothill Boulevard, her crayon drawing would soon hang beside memorial photos and old road maps, reminding every man who walked through that door what brotherhood could mean when it mattered. What at times should times mean. What it had finally become. Justice signs in cold ink. In the end, this story reminds us of a truth. Many people learn late in life. Silence rarely protects us, and looking away from injustice never makes it disappear. Whether it shows up as abuse, manipulation, prejudice, or a system that fails, the vulnerable darkness grows strongest in the spaces where people feel too afraid or too ashamed to speak. What Emma, her mother, and even Marcus teach us is that courage doesn't always look like bold speeches or heroic gestures. Sometimes it's simply a child pressing a note against a window, a mother asking for help one more time, or a man choosing to stand up when he could have kept walking. And as the old saying goes, you reap what you sow. Every small act of bravery plants a seed that can change the landscape of someone's life. This story also reminds us that people are often more complicated than the labels placed on them. A person's past doesn't erase their potential to do good when it matters. True character shows in the hard moments, not the easy ones. Real gold doesn't fear the fire, and sometimes it's the most unexpected individuals who rise to defend what's right. More than anything, this journey asks each of us to look at the relationships and systems in our own lives, where we've stayed silent, where we've accepted too little, or where we've let fear decide for us. And it gently challenges us to choose dignity, self-worth, and compassion over fear, even when the path feels long. If this story moved you in any way, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Feel free to share your own experiences or reflections. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe so you won't miss the next powerful, thought-provoking story. Wishing you peace, strength, and a quiet kind of hope wherever you are tonight.